Okay, everyone, let's get started. Welcome. My name is Chuck Wallace, and I'm a associate professor of computer science at Michigan Tech, and also associate dean for curriculum and instruction. We're starting a series called called 10 Minutes, and with various faculty. And the idea here is that we want to give everyone a little glimpse into who we are and what we do. I've written 1010 here, and for those of you who know about the binary number system, which we all love in the computer world, 1010 is how you say 10, right? There's a 1 in the 8's place and a 1 in the 2's place. So that adds up to 8 plus 2, which equals 10. So I've got 10 minutes to say my piece. It looks like I'm already at 5:32, so I'm already running behind. Let me get started. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and what got me interested in computing, and then tell you a little bit about some things you can do at Michigan Tech to get more involved. I'll start off by talking about where I come from. I grew up in Northern California, way back in the 20th century, and this is a little route that shows you how far it is between my house, my hometown in Inverness, and the town of Cupertino, where a little company called Apple started manufacturing computers that you could actually buy for your home. It was really quite revolutionary. So this is me in 1980, the guy with the big smile there, and this is the computer group at my school. The older gentleman behind me was the evil librarian at my school, who found all kinds of ways to keep us from having to go to boring classes, and instead we went and made films and slideshows and read science fiction, and he bought a computer in 1980, which was a big deal. Very few people had them, and the interesting thing about getting a computer back in those days is you'd get one, and there wasn't a whole lot you could do with it. So if you wanted to do something, you had to do it yourself. And this kind of fit in really well with the vibe at the library at my school, because we were creating things in all kinds of different ways. We were making, like I said, making films, playing music, and doing performing plays and stuff. And then all of a sudden we have this computer. So what do we do with that? So it was kind of fun, because it felt like just another kind of creative thing that we could play with. Pretty soon after that, I was able to get my own computer, or my dad bought my first computer, Apple II computer. This is me at the time, 14 years old, and you can see severely undernourished. I think the message here is that I was spending too much time on the computer and not eating enough. So, but this was a time when that little box, which had probably about as much computing power as my remote garage door opener does now. It opened up so many possibilities, and so many things we could just kind of play with, right? The thing that was really nice about this time is that at my school, again, we had this computer, we didn't have anything to do with it. So I was kind of charged with figuring out how this thing worked and how to make it do something useful. And so me and my friends, we worked on creating educational games for other students in the school. And this gave us kind of like a mission, which was really exciting for us. It's one thing to kind of play around on computers, and that's kind of fun to make it do interesting things. But when you've got a mission, it somehow makes it even more exciting. And so we worked with students in the school, and we got feedback from them. They kind of loved what we did, so it was very exciting. And then a few years down the line, I went to college and majored well, actually not in computer science. I was a linguistics major studying language and literature. Um, and, um, and yet for a summer job, I was able to get a job as a programmer at this company in Northern California. And in 1987, basically, if you knew anything about programming at all, you could get it. You could get a job pretty easily. Not quite so easy nowadays. They demand a little bit more. But when I showed up for the job, my cubicle had a sign that said Charles Wallace, software engineer. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. I don't know what that is, but I guess I'll take it. And but it laid the groundwork for something that I found really interesting. When I got to the company and started working, I realized that programming was obviously something I was doing every day. We were programming systems for large-scale telephone systems, but a large part of the job involved um, talking with people, talking with customers, talking with other people on my team, and testing, understanding the system in a larger sense. And coding was a part of that, but there was a lot more. And one thing that was really clear, it was a very communication intensive process. Lots of meetings, either informal meetings or meetings with team members. And so in some ways, like my language skills came into play in a good way that the lessons learned from my early years. Being creative, computers were like another way for me to create. And I found that just endlessly fun. Creating with humans in mind was even more fun. And then creating with computers and humans and some kind of mission or some kind of job, something useful that you're going to do with it is the best. And that was something that just really sparked my interest and kept me going and got me into the field I'm in right now. Clearly, as a 14-year-old, there's a danger in that you can spend too much time on the computer and not eat enough. And then finally, if you want to do something meaningful and useful with computers, programming is a good start, and it's an essential skill. There's a whole lot more to it, and that's of course what makes things really exciting and interesting. So now I'm a faculty member at Michigan Tech. I have been for many years, and as undergraduate students, places that you might see me in the classroom would include our introductory kind of mathematical foundations course for computer science. I love the sort of foundations of computer science, and this is an important component of being a computer scientist or software engineer. I teach a course on the ethics ethics of computing. And then a couple of courses that are more about software engineering, about the practice of not just the programming, but the process of testing and checking that software is meeting your requirements, and the sort of management and process around developing software. So these are places where you'll see me. And I want to spend a couple more, my last 2 minutes or whatever, sharing a little bit more about some particular activities that you can get involved in. These are groups that on campus that I helped organize. These are ways in which we reach out to the community and help them, sort of in the same way I did, back as a teenager. I really like giving back to the community and helping other people. So these are two ways that you can do that at Michigan Tech. One way is we have sessions where computer science and software engineering students help local people learn about digital technology. So there's a big need for people to feel digitally literate and be able to handle the devices and the internet services that they need. So we have we usually have sessions at the public library on Saturdays, but of course now with COVID and everything, we've moved things online, but we still do great work helping people online. So here's some of the images from that. The other way in which you can get involved and help people is helping middle school and high school students learn about coding. So you can kind of give back in that way. We have a group called Copper Country Coders, which consists of Michigan Tech computer science, software engineering students interacting with students and acting as instructors. So there's an opportunity for you not just to learn, but also to sort of teach. And as any instructor will tell you, one of the best ways to learn stuff really deeply is to teach it. So this is another way you can get involved. We have a lot of fun working with young people, and it's a really vibrant student organization. So both of these groups are available for you to get involved with if you come to Michigan Tech. So just to conclude, you can check out these two websites. Coders.mtu.edu is the website for Copper Country Coders organization. If you're interested in the group that helps people with digital technology, you can go to bdb.mtu.edu. That's our website for that service. And then if you have any questions about the stuff that I do, or any other things about Michigan Tech, I'd be very happy to talk to you. My email address is right there, wallace@mtu.edu. All right, I think my 10 minutes, my 1010 minutes are up. I'm very happy to answer questions that people have about any of the programs I was talking about, or anything else about Michigan Tech. So feel free to either you can use the chat window in Zoom, or if you want to use your microphone and speak, that's fine too.
Are there internship opportunities?
Internship opportunities, for sure. Yeah. The kind of experience I had, way back when, as Michigan Tech students, that's a very common thing for them to experience. And Tech does a great job at making positions available, or sort of advertising positions to students, and kind of acting as a connection between companies and students. But summer internships are plentiful and a great experience, highly recommended. You really, just like I did back in 1987, that there's nothing like being in the workplace and seeing how the skills that you're learning in school are actually put into practice.
Which year those internships they usually start?
Oh, when do internships? Typically, after your first year or so, I'd say that the students tend to go for internships like after their second year or so, something like that. It depends on your sort of level of experience. Certainly some students get internships even after their first year. It's possible, but companies tend to like to see have just a little bit of experience in their students.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are the game design courses like for the computer science curriculum?
Game design courses?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we have, let's see, well, we have an enterprise called Husky Game Development. And that's so enterprise is a group of students where you can take sort of courses for credits, and they're project-based courses, and the projects are sort of ongoing, and so you work as a team developing games. So the game development enterprise is definitely the sort of the primary place you'd want to go if you want to focus on game development. There's a degree concentration within computer science that's on game development, and that includes being involved with Husky Game Development Enterprise, but also, you know, a sort of set of other courses that give you the background that you need in computer graphics, and I think there's there are some software engineering courses that you take, because definitely the practice of putting together games is a software engineering process.
Are there any artificial intelligence courses?
Yes, there certainly are. There are a variety of courses, and so some of them are, there's a course that is something of kind of an introductory survey type course, and then there are more specific courses in machine learning, and Tim is here to give us details about that.
Hey, yeah, I'll answer this question. So yeah, we have an AI course that's at the undergraduate level. We have an advanced AI course that I believe is both undergraduate and graduate, so you get more involved in those concepts. But then we teach machine learning and computational intelligence, which are two aspects of artificial intelligence. And then even new this year, there's a machine learning and cybersecurity. So looking at artificial intelligence with keeping computers safe from hackers and nefarious problems. So yeah, there's a big focus and a lot of faculty that are looking at that and doing research on it. Good question.
Yeah. Let's see, Braden's got a question. What sort of resources are available, and finding out what courses will be transferable, right? Yeah. So if you're coming in from a community college, we have a sort of database of courses from community colleges, other institutions, that determine kind of what the equivalent courses are at Michigan Tech. And to get that process started, if you're coming in as a transfer student, you'd want to talk to our undergraduate advisor, and get that process started, kind of doing the matching of courses. So it's a pretty straightforward process, and sometimes people come in and they've taken a course that we don't have in our database, and that's why we know we'll take a look at the syllabus and determine kind of what the equivalents are. So, and Christine has got a link here. Thank you. Yeah, this is a very helpful website that'll give you a sense. Let's see, a question. How many people do you usually have per class in your program? Okay. Let's see. Do you mean in individual classes, or do you mean like kind of per year?
I mean individual classes.
In individual classes, yeah. It'll change over the course of your time as an undergraduate. As you go from 1,000 level courses, 2,000 level courses, 3,000 and 4,000 level courses, the number of students in the class is going to change a lot. In the intro programming courses, in the depending on which one you take, you'll have maybe 150 students, somewhere in that kind of range, and but then as you progress along and get into the higher level courses, the class sizes shrink down. So by the time you get to 4,000 level courses, depending on the course you're taking, you could have 30, 40 students in a class. So it changes quite a bit. And one thing to keep in mind is with the intro programming courses, which are the big ones, and it sounds kind of scary. It's like, wow, 150 students, that sounds like a lot. But the reality is that you know, in programming, it's a lot about the lab experience. You know, when you go to lab and you work on programming assignments, that's where most of the work is done, and those are divided up into smaller groups. And you're talking about, you know, groups of like 30 students, and so that's so even though it sounds kind of scary being in an enormous classroom with a lot of students, the reality is that your lab experience is going to be much smaller class.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Luke's asking, how many programming languages does the average CS major learn? Okay, yeah, good point. So this is getting back a little bit to my point about programming, that programming is often the entry way for people to get interested in computer science. It was for me, and programming is fun, but it's also not. It's like just the beginning of what we do. And so one consequence of that is that at the beginning, we really focus on the practice of programming. And of course, yeah, we have to choose a particular language. So in our case, the intro language is Java. And so you're going to spend a lot of time thinking about Java, right? And then a little bit later, there's a course on that where you learn the C programming language. Okay, so so another programming language. But after that point, our attitude is kind of like, if you need to learn another programming language, we're just going to expect that you do it on your own, you know, maybe with a little bit of help from us. But at some point, the programming language part is not the important thing. So depending on what you end up doing, you may learn Python, you may learn C++, and you'll certainly learn SQL, the database query language. That's a very important aspect of what we do. But in the end, when all is said and done, you know, after your time as an undergraduate, it's not so much about how many programming languages you know. The truth is that they all start to look kind of the same after a while, right? It's that first one that's a big challenge, and then learning, you know, the nuances and differences of different languages. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, but it's not the big aspect of what we do. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, and really it's just the answer is it depends. All right. Let's see. Is there any overlap between CS and software engineering undergrad degree? Yeah. There is. Let me talk just a little bit about computer science and software engineering. Actually, yeah, I'm going to have to, and after that, I'm probably going to have to go. So Tim, maybe you can take over for me after this. But yeah, difference between computer science and software engineering. I like to think of it like this. We all know what, you know, mechanical engineering or civil engineering, right? We know what they do. Civil engineers, they make bridges and buildings and things like that, right? Mechanical engineers, yeah, like engines and so on. But they all rely on sort of a scientific basis for what they do. They have to know some physics, right? Because they're dealing with physical things. And similarly, software engineers are people who are sort of well-versed in the practice of developing software. So like way back when I was working for the telephone company, right? And I was writing software, I was actually producing something that, you know, producing a product that people needed. And it changed over time, right? Our customer had new requests coming in all the time, and we had to deal with that. So there's a practice, you know, a process that we go through to make sure that the software was correct, and we could respond to change. And so that's an engineering process too, right? Because we're using sort of scientific techniques to develop, to make something that people use. And so computer science is the scientific basis of software engineering. All right, so you can kind of think about it that way. If you, you know, a job in software development is essentially a software engineering job, right? Now, companies will hire computer science majors to be software engineers. There's no problem there. But software engineering is really sort of the more targeted kind of use of computer science in a workplace setting. Right? As far as the question is asking about which degree gives an exposure to programming, AI, and cybersecurity. Answer all of those. I'm just speaking within within the computer science programs, because that's the department I'm coming from. Both of them will involve programming intensively. AI and cybersecurity are things that you can get involved in either of those two degrees. Okay. Which programming languages undergrads should come prepared with? There's no expectation that you have programming language experience coming in. If you do, that's great. It can help, and I recommend it. It gives you a sense of, you know, whether this is the kind of thing that you like to do, right? So that's, but it's not necessary. So if you don't have programming language experience, you shouldn't feel like you can't come and do it. We welcome you regardless of how much experience you've got. Good. Any other questions from people?
How do you feel are the scholarship opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
Like how good do you think they are?
I can help with that a little bit if you want me to.
Oh, great, Christine. Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks.
I don't know if you're in state or out of state, but I'll kind of give an overview. So at Michigan Tech, we have merit-based awards, which are based on your GPA and your ACT or SAT coming in from high school. If you haven't had a chance this year to take the ACT or SAT, you're actually able to do an essay as a replacement, because we know some of you haven't had a chance to take that exam. And so those scores are used, and there's a chart on our website that I will post in the chat box as soon as I'm done talking. And you can literally go, here's my GPA, here's my ACT or SAT, and this is what I receive. And there's a chart for in-state and a chart for out-of-state. You don't have to do anything extra to get those awards. If you are a senior, I'm sorry, this is already done, but we just had our Leading Scholars, which is our top scholarship program, and that goes up to full tuition. That requires an essay and letter of recommendation. So that's like the most money that you would get at Michigan Tech as far as a full tuition award. And then we have a variety of others that are specific to different majors. Maybe you've been in robotics, things like that. And those can all be found on our website that I'll show you. And I think that those scholarships, compared to other schools in state and out of state and even private institutions, we tend to find that Michigan Tech is a really good return on investment. So what you're ending up paying at the end is pretty on par. We also have need-based financial aid. The biggest part of that is called the University Student Award. And you do have to file a FAFSA to qualify for that. And that will help as well, because that looks at your academics and your financial need. And that goes up to about $12,500. So that can be a substantial way to help pay as well. If you want an estimate of kind of what Michigan Tech would cost, there's actually a net price calculator that I'm going to drop in the chat box as well, where you can plug in some of your information and get an idea. Now, if you're a transfer student, if you have a 3.0 or higher coming from a community college to Michigan Tech, or actually even from another institution, you will also have opportunities for merit-based awards based on your GPA as well. So I hope that was a quick overview. And if you have any other questions about that, I'll drop my email in the chat box as well, and we can talk about it later as well.
Thanks very much, Christine. That's great. Any other questions?
How many professors are in your department?
Oh, okay. This is one of those questions we always find difficult to answer because it's always changing. Let's see. I know that within the computer science department, I believe we're at 20 right now. And in the Department of Applied Computing, we have something similar. Dan, 13.4. Okay. Any other questions from people? All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Much appreciated. We are going to continue this this series, talking to having short talks from faculty, and then answering questions. And next, the same time next week, we have Professor Nathir Rawashte, who is going to be presenting, and he's in the Department of Applied Computing. So stay tuned for that, and hope to see you. Hope to see you back here next week. Great. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you. It was a good session. Appreciate it.
Okay, great.